Right, so day 3 of trading diary, futures diary, and that's a lot of what I've been doing today because, geez, no real strategy. So no real strategy on my behalf when entering trades. Now, I think in this video I kind of pre-market, pretty happy with the pre-market work, and it feels like it's good to determine key levels and just do that level of research before even entering into the state of let's trade. My edge and strategy, it's evolved because I'm still quite new to trade, and I've only been doing it a couple of months. It's developing, and I'm trying to find ways to specify and really find entries that align with my beliefs, because ultimately that's what will determine whether it's gambling or whether it's day trading, so I've been trying to really nail down that on my behalf, and today it wasn't too bad, to be honest, because I'm paper trading and there's an element where the current environment that we're in is really volatile and really unheard of, I suppose. But overall today, just a bit, it felt unstructured, I guess, is probably the key note to take. Getting a bit lost with idea of establishing a daily sentiment and then the market going against that. For example, context, these diaries have started during the aftermath of the Trump tariffs, so it's really not a good time to base any kind of foundations, really. But I keep stressing that it's a good opportunity to trade in such a volatile and unforgiving market, because naturally in the future I can base a lot of my experience on the extremes, but also base my my actual strategy on norms. Naturally you'd stay out of the markets really on extremes, because you don't need to add any more uncertainty to something that's already to its core uncertain. So real philosophical, a lot of psychology to start the video, to start the diary entry. But yeah, took some weird trades in this. Was down 300, and I think that's even by this point right now. So just a real strange day. No real solid logic to what we did. But I think I wanted to just touch on, for a reference point to myself, as in regards to the psychology part of it, is understanding that there's probably going to be days where you aren't going to trade. There's going to be days where your bias doesn't work. There's going to be days where the sentiment isn't aligning. I've even had thoughts today of, maybe I need to make my edge and my entry parameters a bit more lenient. And it kind of was just a first weird thought, like, oh yeah, like maybe I should do that, when taking a couple of minutes and realising, actually, what's the point in that? That it's irrational thinking. But just for a note of what I kind of thought today. But just to touch on psychology, I guess, daily sentiment and understanding where you can be flexible in your strategy and your edge and where you can't be. So entry parameters and core foundations as to why I set those steps in place. Absolutely not. There's no room to bend on those. Daily sentiment and pre-market research now. Like I said, we're in the middle of the Trump tariffs. A lot of uncertainty in the market, a lot of fears and recessions. It was deemed to be quite a strong sentiment. But to the start of the day, I kind of did feel like we saw a rally yesterday. People buying puts, for example. As collateral, I would assume. But saw a rally yesterday, a slight rally. And it made me think about the psychology of people and investors, because investors are people regardless of how knowledgeable they are of financial markets. And I can't really understand the discretion that went into it, but understanding that there is opportunity for more bullish short-term entries and short-term sentiment in a market like today, because ultimately there is always going to be a swing on the psychology and the thoughts of everyone naturally after something as detrimental as the collapse in the markets. You'll have a couple of days of rebound, right? A couple of days where Trump will talk about negotiations, or there'll be rumours circulating that there's going to be upside from this this decision made. So maybe just factoring that into any more extremes, any news really when trading. Naturally that won't be the baseline, it's just for the current circumstances, I suppose. Basically I'm telling myself not to always take head on what the definitive sentiment might be. I need to be a bit more discretional, play it into the context of what is going on around us, how human nature is laid out, and the likely reactions that a human would have. And once that's played in, we can start to take a bit more of a evidence-based sentiment, because using ChatGPT and research online is fantastic to get your core foundations, but ultimately what's going to separate you from everybody else that might lose, 90% of people will lose today, is being able to manipulate that understanding, that data, that information, and then playing it to your favour and taking a bit of discretion and making a decision from there. So kind of the key takeaway from today, along with just a bit more focus in these sessions and looking for the correct entries. Now, I made a note on this session about hedging bets and trying to essentially have a bit of contingency when entering a trade, just if it's not a full-on A-star entry, which there'll be times where we take those trades, and it'll be good to at least have it in the back pocket to understand hedging and offering sort of a blanket just in case things do go wrong. So no harm in that. Kind of a risk management tool, I suppose, more than anything. I suppose I've spoken quite a long time, but not too much really to add to today. Just from a psychological perspective, do the pre-market research, define the sentiment, and just note down why, and note down an afterthought, and combat it and challenge it and say, well, what about this? What about that? And if it holds no value, then you've got a definitive sentiment for the day. If the market reacts in the opposite way, pivot to revise that information. If it still holds to what you calculated beforehand, do not change on that. Short-term noise is a massive thing in trading. But if it does change, and if there is a general change in the investors and the mood, then it's not indecisive to change what your opinion is for the day, if anything. And as long as it's done with a fair amount of detail, it's the smart thing to do. So I'm going to start varying that in, and then just parameters. I need to show up on parameters. Utilizing fair value gaps. I can't get my head around order blocks for some reason, so I need to start looking into those, and then dialing into the orbs, the original range breakouts, and just understanding when to get in, when to get out. I know they're about retesting and liquidity sweeps and whatnot, but just things to shore up. Look, it's the third entry of this little trading diary. It's a volatile market, it's an extreme market. We're still learning every single day, and we'll get there. Not at one point in these trades am I kind of panicking or anything like that, or I'm not really seeing any kind of FOMO when I might miss an entry that looks great in hindsight. So good to take them out of the game early. Even on paper trading side of things, people will probably be like, oh well, when you actually deal with real money, you're going to be all over the shop. I don't think so. I think it's a core kind of principle when you get into this sort of work. It's you've got to kind of cut that out pretty early, otherwise you're gonna fare too well, and you won't have a lot of hair on your head, or you'll have wrinkles and whatnot from all the stress. But an afternote, I guess. Anything else? No, not for today. Just yeah, it was a 3 out of 10 day, not a lot of concentration. Sentiment changed on me, and I didn't know how to adapt in that first instance. And I didn't have a lot of confidence in the first decision anyway. So, yeah, we'll go again tomorrow. Cool.